Okay, good evening. It's December 6th, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee. And tonight we're going to be talking about the water and sewer capital outlays, and also some reviewing of previous meetings. Steve, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure, can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Town Manager, do you have anything you want to talk to us about before we start?
A couple of items. Just handed out some information regarding Wolfeboro Waters. There's a PowerPoint presentation in here that summarizes the work they did in 2020. This was presented to the Board of Selectmen September 1st, 2021. Additionally, there is a water quality summary report that is in here. And there are minutes that talk about what they would like in the operating budget. This money that was put together, the $18,650, is what built these reports and tested the quality of our waters. So this kind of summarizes, again, their website has a plethora of information. So there's that for you to review if you have further questions going forward. Additionally, I have reached out to the Chamber, requested a copy of their audit report. That should be forthcoming. Tavis will be discussing ZBA noticing tonight with the Board of the ZBA. And I spoke with Chief Zadi about the Fire Department capital outlay. He'll be prepared to talk about that on the 20th. I believe he's scheduled for a revisit. The other document you have here, the spreadsheets, this is an update on the health insurance. As we discussed last time we met, there was a reduction in the health insurance. When you look at the health insurance line, it's broken out by the various funds for a total reduction in the operating budget of $90,322. And then there's also a reduction in dental insurance of $4,604. And again, that's across all funds. It's your discretion, Mr. Chairman, if you want to take some time to review these documents before making a motion to make the reductions, or if you want to go ahead and make those reductions at this time.
I'd like to know, I'd like some discussion, I'd like to know how the deductions came about and why we didn't realize them in years past.
We've realized them in years past quite frequently.
Okay, I'm just asking a general question.
Yep.
I didn't know if the reorganization was different and that's why we came up with these, or just an ongoing from year to year change in health?
It's pretty traditional that mid-November we get the expenses associated with health insurance. We always program into the budget what the school care recommends. This year was a 10% placeholder. We punched in the 10% placeholder, and this year it turned out to be a 2.4% increase in health insurance. Last year, same thing, we did 10%, and I think it was a 7.6% reduction in the health care. And again, that's normally recognized at this time. Again, before last year, this was in each individual department budget.
Right.
This broken out this way helps us to account for it a little quicker and keep the documents more in line with being accurate.
John?
Yes, sir.
Steve, about 7 or 8 years ago, we asked the town manager and Pete Chamberlain, finance director at the time, to review health insurance rates, and was there something we could do about it? Could we do some shopping about it? Because back then, after 2010, we were doing about 10% hikes every year. So they formed a committee, which I represented this committee on that committee, Health Insurance Review Committee. And at that time, there were three options to municipal governments in the state. One was local government, who we were dealing with. The second one was school care, who we have right now. The third one, I forget the name of, and they are since gone. So local government came in, and school care came in for interviews, and school care was overwhelmingly our favorite choice out of the two. So unions came in and negotiated. So the committee decided that the better choice would be school care, and the unions came in, and the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager negotiated with them to move us from local government center to school care at no reduction in benefits. That was an important criteria in that. The issue with school care is they mostly cover school districts, but some municipalities in New Hampshire. And however, they bill or from July 1 to June 30th. So, and they don't come out with their statements until mid to late November. So that's why since the last 7 years, we have not known our health insurance rates until that time, mid to late November. So what Pete Chamberlain had been doing all along is very similar to what these folks are doing right now. He would get an estimate from school care. He would throw the estimate in the budget, and usually the estimate was, in fact, it was always more than what the final premium was. And then we would, after the fact, we would make a motion to reduce those numbers. So this has been going on since we changed our health insurance coverage from local government service to school care.
Cool, cool. So another follow-up question would be, so compared to last year, after we had the adjustment down for the correct amount, are we up over last year or flat for last year?
I think we're up,
2%?
2.4%.
2.4%, and it is spelled out in this spreadsheet. Now, mind you, there are some changes in there as well, because change in plans, you know, somebody gets married, somebody has a family, somebody leaves, and a family plan, and they come back and we hire somebody who is not on a family plan. Those are all variables that we punch in, and, you know, this is current best information on the staffing that we currently have on board.
Thank you.
And also, Jim, I should point out that first year we did that, we saved about $150,000 that year alone. I never tracked how much we saved in years after that. I never made any comparisons with local government center, but we all felt, and I think the employees felt, that it was they have much better coverage now than they did back then. It was a big changeover, but it went very well.
Good.
And if I may, very good explanation, but
Thank you.
local government is now health trust, in case anybody, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
They changed that a while back. I did reach out to them, and we're going to just look at getting a comparison, and maybe using it for next year. But it's based on your claim ratio, so sometimes it's hard to say the savings, because one year you could have a high claim ratio versus another one, so, but it is worth, and I believe, Jim, they did it a year or two ago, and
2
it was
years
about,
ago, we had a discussion, correct.
and it was about equal, so we're just trying to do it again to make sure we're still in the same ballpark.
Great idea. When we formed that committee, I believe it had been about 21 years since they had done any comparative shopping with that. So that's why we kind of said, hey,
Yep.
maybe we should look around.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, you've got one employee here that's retired, still on here. And then below it, you have an open position for the maximum,
Well, so I would prefer not to discuss this in public,
okay?
but if you can bring that to my attention,
Okay.
I will certainly either A, be able to explain it to you, or B, find the answer.
Okay. Also, could we have a better clarification of some of employees that opt out, what their opt-out pay is for not participating in the,
Yeah, we can do that. It is in your budget books as far as under that individual, but if you want a standalone sheet, we can.
Well, if you
we
could
can
just
probably
add
put
it to
that
this
you.
thing.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? So you're looking for a motion to, what's the bottom line number on the health and dental,
So I don't know procedurally if we need to do this as a bulk vote, Casey, or should we do it individually for each fund?
I think you can do a bulk vote, but do you want the public to know? But I guess there's not a lot. I think you should do it by health. If somebody would like to make a motion to decrease Department 41550-210 for health insurance by
let's
90.
tell the people what that's all about, so they don't have to look up the numbers. What department is that?
Health insurance?
Yeah, but what, is it fire, police?
No,
Oh,
it's
it's
the
the whole-
department,
it's gonna be the whole thing?
It's the department called Personnel Administration where we put all the health insurance.
41550.
41550 is now Police Administration, 210 is health insurance, is decreasing $90,322.
I'll make that motion.
Oh.
Second.
Could I just amend, sorry? The dental in the same Personnel Administration is going down by $4,604.
Right, for the total of 94,922.
That's correct. Would you like to make that motion?
I will. Well, just, John?
Yes, sir.
Pete Chamberlain used to have us do, health, dental, life and disability and unemployment, well, those two are the same, we don't have to do those two. We just, Pete Chamberlain used to have us do them separately, the health insurance and then the dental insurance.
Okay, so let's do the first motion for health insurance, which is a decrease in all health insurance lines of $90,322.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of decreasing the health insurance budget by $90,322, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. How about a motion for the dental insurance?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Okay, and that's to decrease that line by $4,604.
Correct.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of decreasing the dental insurance line, department by $4,604, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Town Manager, Casey, do you have anything else?
That's it?
Okay. Okay, let's go into, what's the first tab, Casey? Water?
Water fund tab, is tab 11. Page 1 is Personnel Administration, which we just covered, so you could jump to page 4, which is Technology Services for the water fund.
Okay, 100 series, 200 series. $900 series.
I'm sorry.
It's only the 425 and 725, it's for computer maintenance and computer hardware.
Department 41,990, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay, any questions on 425 or 725? Okay, let's go on to distribution.
Page 6, Water Distribution, Department 43320.
Series 200.
I got a question on the overtime 140. Seems like we're going, nah, never mind. I'm just looking at the history. Seems okay. Never mind.
Outside services, what's due for that increase? What's the change there? On 380.
There was, no change there.
Well, I know, we don't spend,
On the
we're
budget
2,900, 4,200,
versus actual.
2,800. I mean, you know, so,
Versus actual. You've only spent
can we
about-
drop that down a little bit, or?
you've only spent three.
No, all that money has been spent, so this was a report as of November 1st, so those have been encumbered, those services for the testing and meter calibrations. So we're looking to hold that line item, and all the money will be spent by the end of the
Okay.
year.
400. 500. 600. 700. And 900.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just noticed back on vehicle maintenance, 430. As of October 2nd, we've exceeded the budget, yet we're holding, we've increased the 22 budget a little bit. Was there something that happened with the vehicle maintenance as of October 2nd? It's on page 6. 4 up from the bottom.
You spent $7,600 with a budget of $5. Do you have some insurance claims?
Just wanna make sure I get the right line.
Mhm.
So we're overspent now.
Yeah.
We had some issues with some of the equipment that caused the overexpenditure this year. So next year, we did increase the budget because we are gonna, rust proofing each year, we're kind of undercoating all our trucks, so there's some cost there. And we did increase the budget because of the age of some of the trucks. We are gonna be looking at replacing trucks next year, so we're kind of at the end of the useful life of some of these trucks, so we're concerned that we might have to do a little
Keep
extra.
it going.
Keep it inspected. Our mechanic is tough on inspection, so we have to keep everything up to speed, make sure the rust, and we have some vehicles that are getting on 9,
So
10
the
years.
5,000 is enough, though.
That's what we increased it to, which
Yeah.
was still 1,300, but not as much as we spent this year.
Yeah, thank you.
635 gasoline. You got, I think it's 256 a gallon, is that what that means? On the backup?
Yes.
Is that gonna be enough for your gas?
Gas and diesel always is a little bit of a risk, because gasoline is based on the rack price plus, so it can fluctuate over the year. Let's see where we are this year.
Where do you see that gallon charge?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, it says
On
256, 3,000 gallons.
Oh, yeah, got it.
With gasoline, we had 3,000 gallons at 256.
Okay, cause I was just wondering, Dave, because as I recall, that some of the departments have used like 3 1/4 or 350 or something like that for their per gallon price.
Oh geez, this is a bid price, and I haven't checked that. Maybe we should double check that, but I thought these were the bid prices that we used.
Okay, I'm
We should
not,
say-
maybe Jim can look into that.
We'll look into that.
Thanks.
Geez, I hope we got all this.
I think you could, but I will look into that.
I won't stop now, Jim, I'll go back and look at a couple of things, I'll check Public Works and see what they use for a price for gasoline, if it was the same or higher.
Also, as long as we're on that subject, I have a question on 638 propane.
256 was used in the garage. I think we used the 256 for the gas, but
Yeah, you did use that in the, we got 2 small pickup trucks, 256.
Yeah, 256 we use in the highway too, so I think that's the right number, so
Okay,
we're right, everyone else is wrong.
okay.
Since they're not here to defend themselves.
You all set, Bob, you
And I have a question on 638 propane, is that about 31.8, is that a good number?
That I know is the good, unit price.
That's a good number, okay.
You'd have to know if the gallons are right, but that is a good unit price.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what do we have next, Casey?
Oh, sorry, to page 14, water treatment plant, Department 43350.
No, 100 series.
Hourly wages have gone up.
So, at the plant, we've had a change, because of, the chief operator and superintendent, Janine Gillum, passed away last year. Unexpected, she had a disease, and, she was, non-union and supervisory, so, when she, we could not replace her, because of her, qualifications, but we had grown someone from young, who's now taken the test. He's passed his grade 3, he's chief operator, so he's now in the union. So, basically, the management position has been replaced with the union position to be the chief operator. Scott Pike has moved back to take over the management of that department. So that's the reflection you'll see, where we've had the reduction in supervisory. And then there should be the corresponding increase in the,
Hourly wages,
hour.
Okay, 200. $300. 311 consultants.
Correct. We increased that this year, for, we have a kind of a ongoing, doing our, water rate upgrades, but also on the asset management, we're trying to, implement that, and, this is, covering assistance, from consultants with that.
Because you, according to us, David, you haven't spent any money of it this year.
It has been encumbered since, I believe, so, let's see, you've got consultants here, 0. Yeah, we have, encumbered that 3,000, with, at the end of the year. We were holding back a little bit, and, so I think we have some, proposals, and, purchase orders to encumber that, but it was after this date of the report.
So you'll be going into next year with $8,000.
No, we'll have one, a PO for 3,000 to cover the services that are going on now, that'll
Okay.
end sometime. The 5,000 will be for next year, for the, again, the user rate study and then the, asset management.
Okay. 400 series. $500. 600. 700. 800 and 900.
At this point, we're going to jump to the sewer fund tab. Page 4, again, because we already did personal administration. This is the technology services, flat line, $3,000 budget for computer maintenance and computer hardware for this fund.
Okay, any questions on, technology services?
If not, we can jump to page 6, sewage collection, Department 43260.
100 series. 200. 300. 400.
Question on the 300 line, it kind of goes across the board. The administrative cost allocations for these funds, have those gone up equally for each of the funds?
Not equally, I did, relook at the allocation, and it's up in the front of your book under summaries, and so the other funds, the enterprise funds did get charged slightly more.
Okay, thank you.
400. 'David, who, if I want to get a hold of one of the guys in one of the trucks, who would I call? Does the PD call the radio, call them on the radio? Who calls them on the radio, their radios?
So if there's an emergency call, it goes to dispatch, and dispatch will call the foreman and highway, if it's, unless it's a water, is it a water highway question?
It could be, well, let's say particular water.
Yeah, well, most likely to end up with Scott Pike or Rod Dempsey would be the two head people that would be, and if it's an emergency on the weekend, we have someone on calls during the week, we gotta have, one of those
But would
guys.
someone, say I got called on Saturday, would I get called by somebody from the PD dispatch to go out for the call? Or who would notify me to go on the call?
The PD might call the supervisor, and the supervisor might dispatch someone else. So for
Okay.
instance, Rod Dempsey would get the call, he might go in, might have someone come in with him, or he say, hey, I'm out, can someone take care of it, he knows what the problem is right away, so the supervisor gets it. And the same thing like on the highway, Tony will get the call, figure out what it is, he might come in, or he might assign someone who's on call to get it. They're only on call certain hours, they only get paid for Saturday and Sunday or in holidays. So technically, no one's on call the rest of the time, so we rely on the supervisors or the,
Okay, if I'm on one of the trucks and I have a radio in the truck,
yes.
who am I talking to? Am I calling over here if I have a question, if I need help, if I need to get a hold of somebody?
Well, to be quite honest with you, you would communicate with dispatch if there was an emergency, radio to radio.
Okay,
Beyond that, we do a lot of our communication on cell phone
Okay.
directly, so if there's someone called in, we'd get the cell phone, call the homeowner, so we can talk specifically with them. The dispatch has the numbers, so if they wanna speak. We don't do as much over the radio the way we used to.
okay.
That's why we have a lot more cell phone stipends.
Jim, would the use of the dispatch, would that be part of the administrative cost allocation? By using
We've
that?
never factored that in. We have never factored that in.
Does that make any sense, or as another, well,
It actually makes a lot of sense, for multiple purposes, whether it's MED, water sewer, so that is probably something in the future that we should look at.
Okay, thanks.
But the phone stipends are all in the enterprise funds, and did you say that that's mostly where the calls come from, Dave?
Both, but we have stipends in both.
No, but do they use their cell phones or dispatch more?
Well, we're talking about the truck radios, sometimes they'll be talking, and sometimes the truck to dispatch, those are the radios, versus the cell phone, which is, that way you can have more.
But if I had a water or sewer problem, if I called your guy's phone number, be instructed to call dispatch, or that's who it would go to? I guess who notifies the employees to go out and work
So,
on a
so
Saturday?
during the week time, if you call Public Works, you're gonna get Marie, Marie's gonna take that phone call and process it through to Rod or Scott, or whoever the appropriate contact is. If it's on the weekend after hours, I think most people are going to be calling either 911 or the 44 or 1444, or the fire department because of the hazard that's taking place, and from that point, dispatch would make a telephone call to the appropriate supervisor, and the supervisor would take care of launching the crews from there.
Okay, thanks. Okay, 300, 400, 600,
Question,
yes, sir.
line 635, Dave, I'm looking at your gasoline rate, different than the
Oh,
one.
that was off, yep.
And also, it looks like the one below, the diesel is off too.
Yeah, that's a pretty, what's it, almost 60 cents, 70 cents?
Yeah. I think, if I remember looking back, it was $2.56 was the bid price, if I remember right, on gas.
Well, and that, again, that's very subjective, because it moves every month.
No, I understand, but we need to be consistent.
Yep, agreed.
If we're gonna use one rate, let's use one rate.
Diesel is a locked rate, so we'll look at all of those.
Okay.
700 series. $800 and $900.
Next department, page 11, wastewater treatment, Department 43263.
Okay, 300 series. Big jump in the contract services, David?
Correct, so we had been holding them pretty tight on their escalation over the past 5 years. They've had, again, unfortunately, John Craig, a long-term chief operator, passed away, and they had real difficulty hiring him. They had to increase wages significantly, and during our negotiation, they looked for a 5-year contract to make sure they could keep these people. And I think we all have been happy with their services, so we have negotiated a 5-year contract with each year being renewable, but the increase was significant in terms of the 5% for kind of a cost of living, and then we added $50,000 specifically for asset management contracted services to get us further along on those goals.
Could you just spend a minute and describe those services? I'm not fully aware of what they are.
So we've been, the selectmen, almost 10 years ago, we've been trying to manage through asset management, and that means you need to inventory all your assets. So for instance, on the sewer and the water treatment plant, we would inventory every piece of equipment above, say, $500, determine its useful life and where it is on that curve, and what it would cost to replace it or upgrade it. And based on that, you then develop a long-term plan. So we have been getting grants through New Hampshire DES to do the utilities. So we did the water distribution system, we did the treatment plant, we did the sewer collection system. Our problem now is we have these great inventories and we have a snapshot in time, but they're not being implemented. So as we upgrade, replace that pump, we're writing everything down, but we're still not implementing it into the utility cloud software, which would then kind of make our life easier, but we're always in this crisis management. We need some technical people, because I'm the only kind of technical person in the department, everyone else is kind of worker bees. And we have invested in the tablets, and we have a license through our contract operations with Woodard and Curran for this utility cloud, which is the asset management. And it is we have quite a bit of information. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of data points in under the water plant and the sewer plant and the cluster system. So this now is for as implementing it, trying to get it to the next, so that we can start tracking, like we talk about. You have the ability to go and replace that pump, not only know when the pump was replaced, but we'll be able to log in how many man hours, how much equipment costs. So eventually, everything could be tracked, and we would know, is that emergency maintenance, or is it preventative maintenance, or is it, corrected? So we have, all that is the plan, but we're stuck because we collected all the data and we can't seem to get moving. We're gonna be looking at hiring a full-time asset management person, so it's like a contracted services. So we're gonna be looking at doing more, I think, contracted services to meet the goals if we wanna manage through asset management.
And part of that is to take some of those projects with high price tags and be able to spread those out over a course of years, so that it creates a balanced budget as opposed to spikes on the tax rate.
Okay, so this basically $750,000 is to meet the replacements or maintenance.
Well, no, two things.
required.
Okay, first off, the base contract, which is, what, say last year, we had, 643,000.
Mhm.
We increased it by 82,000. Of that increase, 50,000 was specifically for asset management. So what I just talked about is 50,000 scope of work. The other increase is the escalation, for the manpower, and that 726 covers the 3 full-time people at the plant and the operations, the cost to run the treatment plant. So the whole operation is, that's why you don't see any of the line items. All it is them, we pay for electricity, and we've got some dues and a debt service. But in terms of all the other stuff, within that money, they have a maintenance budget. I meet with them on a regular basis, seeing what they're doing. And they have all, and this year now, they're going to open up their, with this new contract, they're gonna open up all the numbers to us. Cause I keep saying, oh man, they're making too much money, let's take it back. And Jim says, no, you got too much going on, they're doing a good job, let it be. So we're now gonna open up the books and see what money they're making, and then be able to determine that value is there. And then again, it's an extension, that we can't hire everyone, so they're a specialty doing this, and that was the intent, was they could help us implement the asset management, which we kinda stalled.
Yeah, and I think that this is a fairly common practice in the state of New Hampshire, where a lot of these smaller sized wastewater treatment plants are actually run by contracted service. It's a fairly common theme in systems of this size.
Okay, excuse me, 400 series, 500. And 900.
I believe that concludes sewer fund, so if you could jump to the capital outlay tab, page 42. Is for the residential water meter replacement program, for $15,000.
So let's just, if I may, just talk a little bit about that first before we get to specifics.
Okay.
Under the asset management plan, one of the, and that, for the water distribution and treatment plant was done about 4 years ago. And, we were trying to, as debt service was dropping off, is to try to take that money and put it into the bank and be able to do more projects in cash. And we looked at a long-term plan, indicating we have to spend so much money every year, to meet those needs. On the water side, we had $100 million that should be spent over the next 100 years. So it means on an average, we should spend $1 million a year. Well, we're not there, and the goal though was at least do something. So with the capital outlay, our goal was to continue to pick at these capital projects. One of them that's reoccurring though is on the meters. We have over 2,400 meters. The meters, after so many years, they start to run a little slow. So by the standards, we try to replace a certain percentage a year. That's what this first one is. And again, it went up a little bit because of the cost of the meters have increased. And I think we went from 12.5 to 15,000 last year, and that's what we're asking for this year.
And just to tie an earlier conversation together, Dave talked about consultants and rate study. One of the things about the rate studies that's performed is it gives us the ability to look at our water rates so that Dave can sit there and say, yes, we're able to pay our bills, or no, we're not. So that is calculated into this on a regular basis, and he's preparing to have the rates looked at now and probably rate increases.
We do for another one. We were supposed to meet with the selectmen, we get so busy this year, but we have to do an update, and especially now also because you'll notice when we get to the capital projects, we're going after a lot of grant money this year, which is great. We've got some projects, and we've got some money coming, but we gotta look at the long-term impacts of that. So anyways, back to the meters.
Yeah.
So I have a question on the meters. This amount replaces how many of them?
About 100.
Is that 100 typically what you replace in a year?
Yeah, that's what we do now. So we buy those, we upgrade the oldest ones. About, I don't know how many years ago it was, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, we went through the whole system, and we replaced a lot of them.
Yeah.
And this is kind of our maintenance program going forward to do.
This is those electronic guys that are on the outside of the houses?
No, those are the IUDs, these are the actual meter
Oh,
that's
okay.
inside the house, then there's a wire connection to the outside, and that means, now we can read the whole town in a day, now that's great. But those meters inside are the ones that, where the water goes through, and the little thing spins,
Those are the ones we're talking about. The
and their
inside.
prices went up a little bit.
Okay.
So does water have, do we have, I can go back through and look, but did we have another capital outlay like this last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before?
About 4 or 5 years, yeah, since that time, we've been,
And why don't we just incorporate this into the budget as opposed to having it a capital outlay?
well, our guidelines, it could be, I guess, cause our guidelines say from 10 to 100,000, it goes to our capital outlay, it could be within our budget, but
The only reason I ask the question is, I've always thought that it's nice to have a full picture of the budget, and then without necessarily having add-ons, so that's the reason for my question. And, if we, again, I'm not looking at last year's, so if we've done it for the past 3 years, does it make sense to just have it a budgetary in the water budget? Just asking the question.
Do you consider these capital improvements?
No.
Are they better meters or?
This is maintenance.
Yeah.
But I'm looking, there's a lot of line items in everybody's budget that are more than 15 grand, and I'm in agreement with Steve that if this is a continuing, ongoing, ever gonna happen because these things wear out, then it seems to me to make sense that they should be in the operating budget. I think we need to consider that.
we can do that next year, or we can make the change now. I would rather do it next year, since we're so far down the road, but easy enough to make it next year, and we can explain it.
Yeah. I
You agree with
I
that?
think,
All of these upgrades or whatever were paid by the user anyhow, right?
Correct. They're all, and that's the other thing, when we look at the budgets, doing the rates, we escalated the operation budgets, and then we escalated capital outlay, and capital outlay was tied to the asset management plan, so the meters were tied to that, so it's kinda why it got here, but just like you said, it can be easily put into the, maintenance supplies.
I think that's something we can achieve
Yep.
next year going forward without any heartburn at all.
John?
Yes, sir.
Dave, I think the first year you did this, about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe you were looking to swap out 200 meters a year, and we asked you to pull that back, and then it was down to 100 meters a year. Another point with the, capital outlay versus the, budget, if it goes in the budget, I would think it would stay in the default budget. Capital outlay, I'm not so sure.
Correct.
Yeah, so you'd probably be better off with it in the budget, because if you lose a budget, it'll come out as a one-shot.
John,
Yes, sir.
Dave, this is for 100 meters, am I getting that right? Is that what? And they're good for 10 years?
They are, we plan on meters over 10 years and above is what we're replacing now. So yes, the meters after 10 years start to run slower, so it's not the math, you try and do the math ahead of yourself.
I'm looking at 22 years
Right.
at that pace.
Right.
So,
We, again, Bob just reminded me of something. It was supposed to be 2, so we ran low. We need to look at where we are and see whether we need to increase that next year, because that's right, because it was supposed to be 200 a year.
Yeah, we pulled it back.
And we had 20,000, then we cut it in half, now we've increased it because of the cost of the meters. But it also is working good for us, because we're able to keep up with 100 meters a year, so we'll have to take a look at the older meters and where we are down the road. But for this year, I think we're good, but I think next year we'll look at moving it and look at the long-term question.
and the labor for replacing them is done
That's within
town employee?
the staff we have,
Yeah.
so it's all done in-house, we don't contract
Could
it
you
out.
handle twice as many replacements?
That's a good question. I think we can, because we have planned it, but lately, we've had some loss of staff, we've had some people out, so this year has been unusual, then we had some new people training, so the last year and a half has been difficult, so it's worked out well. So I think going forward, it'd be a good time, maybe next year or the year after, that we could start increasing.
And so you have meters that are 10, 20 years old?
Nothing 20 years old, no.
Nothing 20 years
Oh,
old
gosh, no.
yet?
All the old meters and the bigger meters were all replaced when we did the big study, so
Okay.
now we're in pretty good shape. And I have to get with Brenda to do the inventory where we're at.
Do you have an idea of how much water might be getting through unmetered?
Well, this is always a big question, because people always say the meter's wrong, but it's wrong in their favor, not my favor. And we send out the meters, and the meters never test wrong over, they never go too fast, they always go slow. and it's by a percentage. So after 10 years, it could be out of whack 3 or 4%, and that's when they become, we're saying, okay, they need to get replaced. So instead of reading 100 gallons, you're reading 99 gallons, 98 gallons, 97 gallons. So we get to 96 gallons, okay, now it's running too slow, we gotta get you out and get you new. So we're not talking about great amounts, but over 2,400 liters in years, it adds up, so we try to keep it up.
Okay, we all set? That's Bob, right?
And I think about 12 years ago, about 50% of the water leaving the water treatment plant was not reaching the meters.
Not
That's
reaching
another
the
question.
meters. That's different.
We were losing about 50% of the water, and I think, for every, how did it go? We were about losing about half the water, going to the sewer, or no, we had, for every gallon of water that hit the meter, 2 gallons of water was going to the, wastewater treatment plant through infiltration. This whole system was porous on both sides of the meter.
And we're better, but we're not out of the woods by any means, so we keep after it.
Yeah, my wife worked for a big water authority on Long Island, and the trade, the ideal goal in the trade is 10% loss of water. If you're at 10%, you're doing real good.
Real good. We're still much higher than that.
Okay, we all set on the residential water meter replacement program.
The next page, page 43, is the Middleton Road Water Booster Station upgrades for $85,000.
So this is a complicated project, but it entails, the water system is extended up Middleton Road with a 10-inch main. It gets to the municipal electric building, and we have a booster station. That station was put in when the 10-inch main was put in, and the line was extended out Middleton Road. But the station never fully functioned as designed. We never had fire flows or significant flows, and the upstream of that, it never got built out. So we still only have about a dozen customers, and we're trying to, now that the system is failing and we need to upgrade. This year, we started to work with the electrician and electrical engineer and pump company in terms of identifying what needs to get done, and we're about ready to issue the purchase order on the jockey pumps we need. This cost will be the money we need to do the installation next year. So this is kind of a 2-year project and ongoing, similar to the next one, which is seasonal water line. So it's kind of an ongoing upgrade. It was identified in the CIP. We could have gave it to an engineer and put it out to bid. The estimate was $500,000. We think doing it in-house, we're saving a considerable amount of money by getting what we need and not over-designing it. Again, so it's a 2-year project, and we're on the 2nd year.
Any questions?
Yeah, my standard question on the construction, is that labor and materials, or is that just materials? Because we've already factored in, as far as the cost, as far as the budget goes, for labor within the regular budget. So I'm assuming that the 75 is materials.
It is, no, because we're still hiring electrician to do the electrical work.
So so you do have some outside services as part of this?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, a lot of it's gonna be outside services, yes.
But none of it is staff's time.
None of it's staff time.
Okay.
Which is
John.
discussion.
Yes, sir.
Dave, any possibility of grant money on this?
Says 30,000, but is that 30,000 coming from somebody else?
I'm not sure what you're looking at right
Yeah,
now.
I'm not seeing which page is that, sir?
44?
We're on 43.
We have been very lucky on the water side with some big grants and loans. This was a smaller project that could be funded by the local ARPA money. The selectmen have, the town has received $320,000 this year, maybe $320,000 next year. We have a bunch of projects we're looking at, and in fact, when we get to the sewer side, I've listed some of those here. So we gotta determine which would be the highest priority and best bang for a buck. This one here, because it's out there and it's only, it's really probably not gonna score high, where potentially someone who has water problems somewhere else would score high. Or we're looking at sewer projects for that ARPA money, but yeah, ARPA could be used for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
With the ARPA funding, you're not including that funding in the project, those projects wouldn't be included in the budget.
Well, the discussion we've had with town manager and the selectmen was, we have the ARPA funds. We don't have to put them into the budget. But if we wanna have a discussion about it, this is a good place for it to be. And if we're looking at trying to fund it, we can fund a project with cash that we raise by taxation, or we could raise the funds by the money we have in the bank now, which is ARPA funds. So I think the selectmen have the flexibility to make that decision. At this point, I don't think any decisions have been made by them, but it's open for discussion. So the 320 that's sitting in the bank now could be used, I would think, to fund certain projects, and they would come out of this year's
Pull
budget.
them out of the budget.
Correct. And so, and the sewer ones, you're gonna see one specifically that I hope will be taken out so we can fund by ARPA. This one here, cause we're on the seasonal water lines now?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay,
No,
so that's what we got ahead of us.
And this is one of those tricky ones that, you know, the ARPA funds, we wanna get the best bang for our buck on that, and that means that, you know, sewer projects, because that hits all of the tax rate, whereas this hits just the water users. But we've identified a series of projects. Additionally, there is other forms of ARPA funds that are coming into us that you'll see when we get into the warrant articles, loan forgiveness and that type of thing. But the initial tranche of funds, we've identified a series of projects, and we're trying to work through which ones are best suited for those monies.
Okay, we all set?
I got a question on just the budget, cause we're over budget already. If you had to choose between this, which is a necessary, and the next one, which is coming up, which we'll look at in a second, which is urgent, and you had to choose between one or the other, which would you choose, the urgent or the necessary?
Well,
Or,
that's-
obviously you want both, I'm just saying, if we're looking at budgetary constraints and so on, and we need to save somewhere, what would you pick?
let's discuss seasonal water lines, then I'll answer the question.
Okay.
Because that's a good question.
Okay, let's move on.
So we're going to move to page 44, seasonal water line upgrades for $90,000.
So in the preparation of this budget, we have been trying to work on our seasonal water lines. We know it's a deficiency within our water system. We're responsible for these lines that run across country. And we've started to spend money in last year's budget and this year's capital outlay. So I had proposed, again, another expenditure. It's just picking at a big problem. After we submitted this, we went in and submitted to New Hampshire DES the drinking water grant, state revolving fund. So we made applications for multiple projects on the water side. One of them was for the upgrades at the water treatment plant, which we'll talk about when we have the capital project. That got funded great. We had a 50% grant, 50% loan, with loan forgiveness. The second project was looking at water mains. We had asked for, I think $750,000. We got half of that grant. So we have two big ARPA grants and loans there. Seasonal water lines, we submitted for $1.1 million, because we're saying, hey, let's see if we can get it all. They didn't score high, we didn't get any money for that. However, that's a pretty important need, and since I did this, and since we did that, we've had the seasonal water line people coming at us with, hey, I wanna have year round, my well went dry, so we are now trying to do a lot with a little bit of money. This now has become a warrant article. We didn't get the full, we didn't get any grant money from the state on this project. I'm gonna be asking the selectmen Wednesday night to consider a warrant article for $500,000 for seasonal water lines. If that would go through, then this would now be moved, and we could cut this or put it off, because we would have the funding for $500,000 on a warrant article in a bond.
And the other thing that's important about this capital outlay was really done before these ARPA fund grants were identified, and we submitted to the state that seasonal water line grant, which we did not receive funding for that one. So that's why you're seeing this in here as a capital outlay, and the discussion about the warrant article, which is coming forward.
So, like you said, both are important. If we get the selectmen's support on that one, then I would think we could, you know, reduce this one and reduce our capital outlay. Because some of our funding, so that's in terms of the other question, the priority, we've kind of committed to the Middleton Road Booster Station. We want to get that project done. It's kind of a necessity, so, but it's not as important as the seasonal water lines, which are now becoming more urgent. So if you have to push to shove, would I wanna stop the project, I'm at half in the middle of it, or do I wanna keep going on the urgent one? So it's a tough question, so I'm hopeful the selectmen will, support the bond, and then we can, do both.
How
Cut
much
this
did
one
we
into-
put in last year for the seasonal water lines, do you remember?
I think it was about this amount of money.
60,000.
60,000.
So if we drop this to 60,000, you'd still get the $30,000 grant, or is that grant gone?
This is where the confusion part comes. When I submitted this, we had realized we were getting, there's another set of opera money that came to us with no strings.
Okay.
So the town now has it, and we really haven't spent it yet. So I was counting on some of that money, which would help reduce the impact on the rates. That decision hasn't been made, and it's only, as I submitted, I don't think the selectmen, we've discussed it at this point, so I don't.
But on that warrant article, if you do that warrant article, who's going to pay off that, how's that gonna be paid off, by the users,
Yes,
the whole thing?
yes. So what we're doing now, over the last so many years, our debt service has dropped. So we can now borrow $1.5 million and absorb it within the rates we have now without having, any change in the plan for the rates.
So with the users are paying, and you do a warrant article, as I'm hearing it, that will be paid off by the users, so it's really a lesser impact on the overall taxes of everybody else in town. Am I getting that, am I misunderstanding that?
These projects will have no impact on tax rates.
Okay.
Either way.
That's kind of what I'm coming down.
Oh, yeah, either way.
Okay, all right,
Sewer, yes, water, no.
okay.
So it seems like this should be a revisit, depending on what the
Yeah, I
Board of
was just gonna ask
Selectmen.
that question.
What the
Seems
Board of
like this is a
Selectmen does.
revisit
This would be a
depending on
definite
whether it goes
revisit,
warrant
yes.
article or not, so.
I agree.
I think we ought to put a revisit, on this one.
I already wrote that.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay, any other questions?
John,
Yes, sir.
you're using contractors to do this work? I take it?
On the, seasonal water lines,
Yeah.
we have the ability to do this work. So the plan was to do this work this year, but then we had a significant injury, and then we had another problem, so we ended up contracting out the services. Our intent is to try to reduce the engineering costs, and we use local contractors. So we're trying to, have both. So we might, if we have a small area, we might do a little bit, but, the ones we're looking at now for these projects next year, we're looking at all contracting out.
I saw the work being done on the Smith River.
Yeah, Dawson did that one, and we had hired Dawson to a bid job, and they
They
did a
were
nice.
pretty efficient. They seemed
Yep.
to come in and just get it done.
Yep, no, they were low bid on the High and Park Street, and they did a nice job up there, so we extended those unit prices over to there, and they did a nice job for us, cause we had fallen behind, we couldn't do it this year, so.
Okay, I've seen some of these pipes like on Sewer Road, they kind of run down through the woods. Now, when you start doing that, we're not tearing up Sewer Road and all that other stuff, are we, to put these new pipes in?
No, Sewell Road has all year-round water all the way down the road, so that's not one of the roads, but like, Waltz Lane,
Yeah.
those dead ends are the ones that we're gonna be looking at, having issues with, working with associations in terms of
Okay.
upgrading lines. And we'll have to get easements, because we're not taking over any responsibility for road drainage, but we're just taking water responsibility.
We got a couple that aren't,
Excuse me?
we got a couple that aren't, they may be user problems. Cause we've got some surface lines on Sewell Road.
Okay, well, I should qualify that. So it's year-round to the right-of-way, and then it comes up out of the ground to be the, so that's, we kinda consider that a little different versus us running thousands of feet, so that's a service line you're seeing.
Right.
And maybe one or two people, there's not,
That's up to the user, correct?
we're gonna be looking at those people to get those buried also. They have to, we have to guarantee clean water at their spigot.
Right.
Even if we don't own the pipe in between, we gotta make sure they do it right, so this is where we gotta get caught up, we're at risk at some of those areas.
We got a
Couple of,
I think there's a handful of them.
but most of that work would be from the edge of the right of way on the property.
Yeah, okay.
And, if we're upgrading this system, can't we charge a betterment fee?
So that's another great question, and, I've talked to Brenda, and we need to get together with the, selectmen and finance and selectmen, so we're gonna do an ordinance update to address that specific question. What would be the right amount? If they've been on the system and they go from a seasonal to a year-round, should there be a betterment assessment or a connection fee? So yes, that's absolutely.
If I had a well at my house and all of a sudden the town decided that they were gonna run a water line in front of my house and I opted to stop using my well and hook up to town water, I should have to pay for that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
next?
It's a little more complicated, and not right now for discussion, but it's more complicated than that, but it's similar, so I agree.
I'm talking about people that already have the water service, but their lines from the street are going over the ground.
Yeah, so they're going from seasonal to
These are people that are not seasonal.
so they have year-round water that doesn't freeze.
You got it.
Well, they blow them out, we shut them off, they pay a fee to blow them out.
Yeah. Anyway, this is important.
So how do they have above-ground water lines that don't freeze in the winter that they're using all year long?
They don't.
Okay, just so I can clear this up, we can cross out the $30,000 grant off that sheet.
Yes, please.
It's gone, okay. So it's strictly 90,000 cash,
Yes.
or whatever, okay.
We're
Okay.
revisiting the whole fund.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
David, if your proposal for a warrant article goes through, would that encompass the entire project, all the seasonal lines of the town?
Nope, just the beginning. We had put in for 1.2 million in the grant, so what we'll do is we're gonna get the critical ones, we're gonna then reapply next year. Where we didn't score high, we're gonna figure out why and try to go at it again next year. We have quite a liability with these, 200 and 240 customers throughout town. So this is a really big problem. We're looking at the most significant ones first, and like I said, we did the pilot plan this year. Next year it's gonna be Albee Beach, which we have a public facility where the line runs 1,000 feet through a swamp. Waltz Lane, where we had a house being fed through a beaver swamp. The beaver ate the line, had to shut them down, selling the house now, it's just, so it's different situation, but it's by no means is it all, no, we got a lot more coming.
Yeah, this 1.2 million number that you're using, that's just the start of it? Percentage of?
So what we're doing also, this year, they've come out with planning grants, so I'm gonna apply for an additional, which wouldn't need any town meeting authority, so we're looking at a $50,000 planning grant to do a master plan to answer the question which I think you're heading towards. Where is, how many can we do? Because in the asset management plan, the intent was every 30 years to replace all the above ground piping. That might be cheaper than what we're trying to do now, but it's not legal. We can't put above ground piping in, so we know we have to take care of it. We have this liability, and we're trying to, again, some of the areas, we may have 3,000 feet with only 3 customers at the end. We may have to negotiate with them to put in wells. We're gonna have to just cut you off, but because they have a house and they're using potable water, they're in the club, and we can't just kick them out of the club. We gotta take care of them, so it's a difficult situation. I don't have the total amount, and we've been, it's been on our list since I've been here 14 years, and just recently, and now we started attacking, and this year we finally got, not a big success, but we got 4 or 5 people off, and each year we intend to do more, and then hopefully, if I get the planning grant, I can answer the question, which is, okay, where's the end? Because the other question is also, again, getting off the subject, but on this vintage water mains, we have a grant to do a project, $720,000, that's just engineering, for 3 miles of water main. Then we have to replace all those water mains, and all those water mains are 130 years old. So those are all projects to come.
Dave, question, what would your guess be, a percentage of the seasonal water lines waterfront homes?
Yeah, high percentage.
High percentage.
Okay, let's move on to,
Page 45 was removed by the Board of Selectmen. It's for the water treatment plant, alum sludge disposal. So I did-
Alum sludge, yeah, we were able to get
Alum
out,
sludge, sorry. So I don't believe we need to discuss that because it was removed. So page 46 is the first sewer mowing equipment for REB and cross-country utility lines in the amount of $70,000.
Right. So we have an older tractor that we're having problems with on roadside mowing. In the highway and the solid waste cap reserve fund, we're looking at upgrading that tractor. The water and sewer department has needs for cross-country cutting of sewer and water lines. And specifically now with the RIB site, we've created acres of fields now that are gonna have to be mowed maybe once or twice a year. But it's gonna have to be special equipment because we've gotta keep trees from growing in these new infiltration areas. So my plan here was to buy the equipment through the highway fund and then pay for the specialized mowing equipment through this fund, and for it to come from the proceeds from the RIB lawsuit. However, we haven't done the final numbers on that, and Linda's after me on that, so we're gonna be meeting with John on get the numbers. so that this would have been paid by cash from the sewer fund. But again, this, I don't believe, I think we did talk about it with the selectmen, but I still think they're waiting for the bottom numbers here, to see whether or not it can be included. So
So
the
you
intent
say
would
this
not have
may-
an impact on tax rate, it would be with the sewer funds.
So is this a revisit, you guys still working
Yeah,
on it?
because we really gotta, Dave's getting the final numbers on the RIB site so that we can talk about the warrant article projects. I think it's fair to say that this is a revisit.
So I have a question on this, Dave. You've got lots of area around the RIB that'll be like a hayfield. Why not talk with or investigate the possibility of someone just haying it who already has a tractor, who can do that?
Correct.
Then we don't have to expend the money.
Right.
You can, a lot of contractors that I know would cut the field if they could get the hay and not charge the town anyway.
Right.
Anything. So I'm just looking at other alternatives rather than the expenditures of.
Well, we do that now, so one of the issues is, around the effluent storage pond, we contract that out. We contract out the, cutting along the landfill, because of the steep slope, so we have a specialty contractor. So that is definitely an option. I'm very concerned because it needs special care, and, the other issue is the roadside mowing, which is probably more critical for this piece of equipment. And that has been a real problem, trying to get people to do that or equipment to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with the roadside. That falls more into the purview of Public Works anyway.
Right.
But the field
Sure.
is what I'm thinking about.
Sure.
I mean, the
No,
roadside thing
it does
is,
mow it, yeah, and then, yep, you're right.
you know, so yeah, if we're gonna revisit that anyway,
Sure.
I'd like to explore that as a possibility.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we can move on.
Page 46, page 47, sewer pump station upgrades, the amount of $62,000.
So this is a particular problem with our smaller pump stations. On the big stations, Mill Street and Laner, they are under design now, and we'll talk about those during the capital projects. But the 7 smaller stations are all vintage in 1980s and 90s, when a lot of subdivisions were going in and these stations were going in. And we've been taking care of the pumps and the motors, but the control panels are starting to just disintegrate. And they're getting hard to find parts. So this was one that we were trying to get done sooner than later, and are proposing to use ARPA funds. But like Jim keeps telling me, you can only spend the funds once, and I've spent them 3 times already, so I do have to be careful on this one. So at this point, we were looking at not having an impact on the tax rate, but using ARPA funds for that. But that also needs to be discussed with, as we talked about. So the intent was to have it here, so it would be a discussion, but and it's a need, so if it doesn't get ARPA funded, then it'll be back in next year's budget, either under capital outlay or under the operations budget.
So do you want us to just take this right out of here?
I would like to revisit it if possible, but I think it's gonna come out from your perspective.
Okay.
We might as well, because we're gonna look at the other ones, and the same thing with the last one here.
The site work upgrades?
Correct, so, we have been, one of the processes, when the treatment, the wastewater is done, we have sludge. And that sludge is hauled out by a 9,000-gallon tanker truck. Currently, that truck has to pull up into the septic receiving area, and where he is filled, and then he has to back down about 1,000 feet onto Filter Bed Road. You know, we get into these bad habits, and then you look the other way, you say, it's illegal, what's the big deal? Well, it's a big deal, and it shouldn't be known, and yet we've been allowing it to occur. Most recently, with the expansion of Filter Bed Road as a boat storage facility, the traffic has increased tenfold in speed, so we're very concerned about safety. So we're looking at a phased approach here. We started this year with a capital fund to look at going, so the truck would go straight through the fence, turn, and then come out where the old sludge composting was, and come back out to Filter Bed Road. So this will be a safety issue, and it is, again, one that we had discussed possible funding. So this is a possible one. This could come from Cap Reserve Fund. So again, I think this one is gonna be revisited, which you will probably be able to drop it, because I think the selectmen will have to make a decision, and depending on how we funding the Cap Reserve Fund, then this could go away. And again, these were done before we knew what was going on, so I apologize, but.
Okay, any questions on that? So we've got pretty good list on revisits for capital outlays for water and sewer.
So I do believe you've been through everything for water, sewer. You've been through all capital outlays that have been presented with these four, tonight that we discussed on the revisit list.
I just got a general question, not really about the budget, but say, I wanted to come into town in a piece of land, I wanted to put 40 houses in. Could the septic, could the water, sewer and all that support that?
So, that's an excellent question, and someone just happened to come into my office the other day, asked this specific question, except they said 240 units. And the issue is, we have a sewer map which shows where the sewer is. And by regulations, if you're within those areas, you have to tie in. Based on current zoning, we have done studies to say, okay, if everyone tied in, how many gallons would that be? And that's it, because we only have so much capacity. So for instance, if there's a piece of land that's zoned for 20 units, and someone wants to come in and get a special exception to put 60 units in, whoa, that 40 units is now gonna take sewage from somewhere else.
Okay.
Or if you go outside the zone, and you say, hey, I wanna extend it to an area where the sewer's not there now, well, that's not even in the plan. And if you go take X amount of gallons, you're taking it away from a lot that may haven't been built yet, or hasn't built out to zoning. So that's a tricky question. Now, similarly, we're gonna go back and revisit those numbers with the upgrades we're doing to the pump stations and the treatment plant. We're gonna redo those numbers, because the question is becoming more, it's not theoretical, people are actually asking that question. And the selectmen need to know where we can give the allocations.
Can zoning, when the people come in to get the permits, can they control as far as whether they hook up to the sewer or not?
No, they have to connect to the sewer if they're in a zone, unless there's a hardship. For instance, if the property has, 1,000 feet of frontage and the house is way back there and they have fine septic, then we wouldn't make them tie in.
Yeah.
But by right, where the sewer is, usually if the density is tight and they should tie in.
Okay. Are we in pretty good shape as far as the capacity? If someone wanted to do, hear a lot about workforce housing and things like that. Is our plant capable of, helping support workforce housing if they want them, someone wanted to come in and put in 30, 40 units, or?
Only if it's within the current zoning.
Okay.
So when the proposal I heard was to take a current land that's zoned, say, for 20 units, and they wanted to put 75 units.
Okay.
That wouldn't be allowed, and I would hope that they wouldn't allow it, because we don't have capacity to, unless we make a decision to say, okay, we're not gonna allow someone else to build out, but we think this is so important, we'll give allocation to that.
Okay.
There's also another situation. When we went with the state on our discharge permit, we downsized, and the treatment plant capacity was downsized. At the same time, we're looking at reducing the I&I, as we talked about, because a lot of our capacity, 30% of it, is groundwater. So if we can knock out 15% to get to that level, that 15% now we could then potentially give to somebody else.
Okay.
But right now, we aren't giving away what we don't have, and we only have so much, and it's for the zoned lots that haven't been built upon.
Okay.
And we did come forward with an initial request for an I&I project as a warrant article that we ended up having to remove because the numbers and the amount of projects are just too much. But it's never gonna go away, and I&I is something that we have got to continue to address.
And
Tell
we
me
repackage
what
that for next
I&I
year.
is.
Infiltration and inflow.
Thank you.
So it's our acronym, sorry about that. And that's groundwater either getting through a sump pump or leaking in through crack pipes. And that's taking up the capacity. And we will go back next year, again, if there's another round of funding, we're gonna repackage that application, because we didn't score any grant money, that's why we kinda dropped it.
Is your, what's your bigger concern, sewer or supplying water?
Well,
Or are they both equally?
Yes.
like I tried to say the other night, the good news is, again, the dynamite didn't go off, but I sit on a pack of dynamite. Whether it's a 130-year-old water main that could go off downtown, it's a sewer pump station that could let go and leak sewage downtown. So both of them are critical, both of them keep me up at night.
John?
Yes, sir.
So, David, we've talked about the math on this a few times over the years, and the permit was reduced to 340,000 gallons a day.
430.
It's up to 430 now.
That's what we
Okay,
got
so-
permitted.
Okay, all right.
So you're right, it was cut back, but the new permit now with the new facility is
430,
430.
so you're, I don't know the math on 430, it was 124 million, all right, so I'll drop that question. But the other thing is, there is a considerable amount of potential build-out in the current sewer district, there's no question about it. The Brewster Academy is on the verge of building a second dorm identical to the first dorm they built next to Clark Road. 22 students and 2 faculty families, and they took down their maintenance shed, and they're using the old bank on Center Street now, and their game plan was to put up an identical dorm with the first. Then you have Harriman Hill, they've been talking about expanding.
They have approval for phase 3.
Okay.
They already have state approval, so that's already figured in. But what you're saying is excellent question. I don't know about Brewster, because I'm not sure about the next phase of Brewster, if that's figured in.
Well, and then,
That needs to be revisited.
I think they got the permits on that, and then the nursing home has about 15 acres back there. I don't know if they'll ever have any plans of expansion, but they have the property, and there are a number of lots left in the sewer, on the Clark Road, Clark Point. There are some lots left that could be built on, and I would say the same may go for Sewell Road, that area in there. There are probably some lots to build in there, so that you have to, obviously we have to be concerned about that.
And I think the point is, we need to update the study, because the question is gonna come, we're gonna have the hard numbers, like you said, we gotta see and then we may be able to, we're gonna update our groundwater discharge permit. Once it runs for a year, I'm confident that it's gonna be successful, and we'll be able to increase it back to where it used to be.
600, maybe, okay. Well,
Let's do one step at a time.
well, 600.
And I want also to understand that we do not have unlimited sewer growth, so people are gonna understand, workforce housing sounds good, but hey, we are committed to our sewer, and we have to go back to that. So we can't just say big projects, we can't have a big hotel, we can't have Walmart, we don't have capacity for that, we have just for the infill. But you brought up a good point too. The Clark Road extension opened up more land that wasn't in the original assessment. So for instance, there's
Right.
10 additional lots. Now,
Right.
Wando Lane might go another 6 lots. So there's 16 more lots that were added that weren't in the original study. So we gotta go back and update that study.
But all those issues can be dealt through zoning, when they give the permits and all that.
What I'm saying is, we're gonna update where we are now, so we can give the selectmen, what's the scorecard? How many gallons we have capacity, and then we're gonna revisit that with regards to the zoning, because when they did the study, they looked at, okay, what is the build out? And we had capacity at that time, when that study was done, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I know of 2 different groups in town. One's looking for 120 units of workforce housing, one's looking for 70 units of workforce housing. So they go before the zoning board or the planning board, and they get approvals.
They can't.
Yeah,
How can they get approval?
yeah, I mean, the whole thing, that's what I'm saying, the whole thing's moot. Because what they're doing is they're saying that they're pushing for the workforce housing, because that's what everybody in town is talking about. And they're saying, we're gonna get approval from the planning board, but they can't because we don't have the sewer capacity.
Just so long as everyone's talking to everybody, so we all, that the zoning people are talking to you and everyone's talking about everything. That's a big thing.
No, that's not true.
No, I mean that you guys are talking, they have an idea that we can only put so many houses left.
Oh, I don't know. What he's saying is, hey, maybe the planning board will go approve them, or the zoning board approve, they don't, no one talks to me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna do a study and give it to the town manager and the selectmen, and then hopefully we're on the same page.
Okay,
But
I'm sure our town manager.
he makes me nervous every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, these 2 projects that are being talked about are very scary projects, and
Yes.
we'll leave it at that.
Right, I think what you're saying is that they can approve whatever they want, but if you don't have the capacity, you can't.
Correct.
Yeah.
What kind of conundrum do you have when, cause I know that one of the groups have talked to me, and they have said that they think that they can get enough people on the, planning board to approve one of their projects. But how can you do that when we don't have the water or sewer capacity? to
Needs to be
maintain it?
discussed at planning, not budget committee, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Okay, we have anything else for Mr. Ford? Mr. Ford, do you have any questions for us?
No, thank you for the excellent job and the time you guys put into this. I appreciate your effort, even though it seems like sometimes not easy to come out here. And
7:26, so.
not too bad. I get home from,
Good time for game.
I can go ahead and start making my hors d'oeuvres and I'll be ready for kickoff. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave. Okay,
Minutes.
No,
no minutes,
they got changed tomorrow.
Thursday, Thursday coming up, we have, CASA, White House Recovery Center, Economic Development, Electric Department, and the consideration of, minutes. For some reason, I thought welfare, have you already done welfare?
No, everything had to get shifted because of the two cancellations.
Okay, okay.
So
Welfare
is
was
now-
there, but it
Were
didn't.
they, were they?
Well,
It's on the 20th.
Okay. Is there any chance that Amy could come on this day here?
there is, I gotta check with people
Okay.
today, because sometimes they work on different nights.
Oh, that's right, because I see what you mean, yeah, okay. Tom, how are you making out on your projects that you're working on for the police department?
We're in a,
Tom Bell, I'm sorry, Tom's got some stuff he's working on.
It's spreadsheet work.
Yeah.
And I have to get,
Okay.
but, I think that's scheduled for the 19th.
Yeah,
I wanna get it a week ahead of that.
okay, good. What'd you have, Bob? Can I just make the request to you, Mr. Town Manager?
Go ahead.
Ready? Okay. What I'd like to see on the police department side is, the chief gave me, I asked for some information, the arrest from January first till September or August of this year. And he gave me probably 35 or 40 pages of each officer's activity. And what in particular I'm looking for is to say, okay, in 2020, we had 10 burglaries, 15 accidents, 22 DWI arrests. Just an activity thing that shows how much stuff they did each day for each crime or each event, or whatever you wanna call it. It's very similar, it's not an outrageous request, I don't think, I've seen it in previous town reports where they give a report of
So
the
you,
activity.
so you're just looking at a gross number, by activity?
Right, so in 2020, if we had 25 burglaries, 2019, we had 26 burglaries, thefts,
John,
just
I mean,
basic.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
those are the statistics I have that I'm working.
Yeah, but that's not your responsibility, Tom. They should be able to press a button over at their police department that they can give those reports out. You shouldn't have to spend.
They have it by year and it just needs to be aggregated into a spreadsheet, so.
Yeah, that's what they should be doing over there. I appreciate your efforts, but that's what they have support
You
staff
just
for.
saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, I've been looking at it, and I would think they could press a button on a computer.
I will send the email, tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, that would be good, I appreciate that. It's just, I've looked at some of the stuff that Tom had, and he's got a stack of sheets, and I would think in this day and age, someone could
How many
type
years?
in a date, January first, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 activity, and could print all that stuff out.
Okay,
What
and,
they don't have is they have each year separately, then they just need to create a spreadsheet that shows 20, from 2019 to.
Yeah, just, you can look and say, we had 12 burglaries, 12 thefts, just stuff like that.
for what years?
You wanted 10 years, right?
Yeah, so it's 2009 to, yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
it's noted in the, June 21st minutes.
Yep.
There's a motion made by Bob Tuffer,
June 29th?
21st.
All right, thank you.
Actually, I'll just email it to you.
I got it.
I just think they have the capability
They don't have an IT.
to generate a 19 report that would show that.
That's not an
Thank you.
IT thing. That would.
Okay, does anyone have anything else?
The sports.
Yeah, I just had a question on
Yes, sir.
on this, Wolfeboro Waters. Is that a
Yes, sir.
revisit, now that we've got the detail, are we gonna go back and discuss amounts, or is that it?
I have to look back at the minutes to see, but I imagine it's probably a revisit.
I think it is a revisit.
Yeah.
It is.
So we'll talk about it later, okay?
Well, the revisit was just for explanation, so you're looking for more than explanation?
We'll go down and discuss it.
Yeah, do we need to have the folks here for?
I would prefer to have somebody here, so,
Okay.
if you can let me know, Leanne, what the revisit on that is.
He has my calendar, hold on. The new calendar, I gave you.
You have a revisit on the 20th.
Okay, so it's.
The 20th?
December
Okay.
20th.
Okay, does anyone have anything else?
It's not an IT thing, it's a spreadsheet. It would be.
So you've got enough staff to do
Yeah.
it themselves.
It's not
Can
an
we get a
IT.
motion to adjourn
so,
in a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Motion to watch the game.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.